So we know how to take the square root of a whole number, so a positive number. And that would be like the square root of 4. And you put that in your calculator, you'll get 2. But now we're going to talk about taking the square root of a negative number. And in this case, it's not the same. In fact, you can't even put it in your calculator. Your calculator will show that you have an error. So you want to take the square root of a negative number. This is the same thing as the square root of 25, which we can find with our calculator, times the square root of -1. Because remember, whenever you have radicals like this, you can multiply what's underneath them. The square root of 25 is 5. The square root of -1 is always going to be the same thing, and it's going to be represented by the imaginary term I, and it's lowercase I. So what you need to have in your notes is the square root of -1 is always I. All right. So if we have the square root of -49, that is going to be the square root of 49 times the square root of -1. Square root of 49 is 7, and the square root of -1 is I. Okay. There's going to be a time, let me get a little closer with this, that you're going to have another constant number with it that does not have the imaginary part. And here's an example of that here, 5 plus 2i. The part with the I, including the sign, is the imaginary part. The constant itself is the real part. And you always need to have them in this format to where it's the constant plus bi. A plus bi format is how you should always represent complex numbers. Okay. Example 1, expressing an imaginary number in standard form, and a plus bi is standard form. Express square root of -9 in standard form. Well, you can break that down, should you want to, into square root of 9, make a 9 here, and the square root of -1. The square root of 9 is 3, and the square root of -1 is I. If we wanted to have this in true standard form, it would be 0 plus 3i. 0 because there is no real part, and plus 3i because the 3 is positive. It's not negative. You can come over here and do the same thing with this. Please note that the 24 is not a perfect square. It does have a perfect square in it. So you can break that down. First of all, I'm going to make this square root of 24, square root of -1. Now I want to take this square root of 24 and break it down into its perfect square. And its perfect square is going to be 4, I believe. Yep, 4. Square root of 4 and square root of 6. 4 times 6 is 24. So I'm going to bring down, I'm going to go ahead and make this I, since I know that that's what it is. Square root of 4 is 2. We do not have the square root of 6. It's not pretty. So I'm going to leave that as 2 square root of 6. Now, if I put the I here, it could be assumed that it's up underneath this radical. So I don't want to do that. What I want to do instead is put the I to the right, to the left of the radical, the square root. So it's 2i, the square root of 6. Again, if we want to have that in standard form as they're asking, it would be 0 plus 2i, the square root of 6. All right, plotting in the complex plane. So if you're going to plot in this complex plane as well, let me turn off the light. There we go. The real part is always your x value, and your y part is always your imaginary value. So you can think of this as 0, 2i square root of 6, all right, or 2 square root of 6. So for this one, they've got -2 plus 3i. And that's going to be, you're going to plot the point -2, 3. And that's where it's going to be. This is not a Cartesian coordinate system. This is a complex plane to where the x value represents the real part and the y part represents the imaginary. And that's why I wrote them like this. It is not 2 points. It is only 1 point represented by this complex number. All right. And that point is to the left 2, up 3. There's your point right there. And then, of course, you need to label it. Plotting a complex number on the complex plane. Let's look at example 2, and then I'm going to stop the video. Plot the complex number 3 minus 4i on the complex plane. So again, you're going to have just 1 point. 3 is going to be where my real value is. -4 is going to be my imaginary portion. Okay. So I'm going to go to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. Do not place your point yet. And then I'm going to go down 4 because it's negative. So right here, plot my point, and then I need to label it 3 minus 4i to represent that. You will have to do this on your exam. Plot the complex number -4 minus I on the complex plane. So please pause the video and give yourself a chance to answer this, and then come back and see how I did it. All right, so I would label this as -4, -1 if I'm going to plot the point. All right, there is an I here as well because that's the imaginary portion. So I'm going to go to the left 4 since it's -4, and then I'm going to go down 1 and place that point, and then do not forget to label it -4 minus I. There's an assumed 1 in front of that I, which is where I got the -1. Anytime you have a variable and there's not a number in front of it, there's always an assumed 1. All right, I'm going to pause the video and come back for the next one.